Good morning. My name is Reverend Barbara Gaydon, and I am Eliot's lead minister. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to our worship this morning. Whether you are here at our outdoor service or watching from home, we are here, united as one community, more together than apart. A few reminders for those of us who are here in person. Masks must be worn at all times, correctly pinched over your nose, pulled under your chin, you know the drill. And we have adults and children's paper masks if you need one. You must also check in, even if you are sitting outside the sanctuary area, so that we can contact trace if we need to. There are restroom facilities. You enter behind me, go into the main doors through Adams Hall, turn left, and down the hallway towards the sanctuary. If you're visiting for the first time, I offer you a special welcome. We are so glad that you chose to be with us today. I hope you feel warmly welcomed, that today's message speaks to you, and that we will see you again. If you're here in person, please fill out the guest card on the way out so that we can stay in touch with you. If you're at home, drop us a line at welcome@eliotchapel.org and let us know you're here. Today is a service of remembrance. Each of you should have received a paper leaf as you entered the sanctuary. If you didn't, please raise your hand and one of the greeters will bring you one. You will have the opportunity to write on the leaf the names of those you wish to remember today. This is a liberal religious community of spiritual seekers. We welcome you in all the fullness of your age, race, ethnicity, gender expression, sexual orientation, and religious background. Our faith is not lived in creeds, but in deeds, not in the hereafter, but the here and now. Our core values are freedom, reason, respect, and love. Let us celebrate the power of memory to give us hope. Let us celebrate the power of memory to help us heal. Let us honor the many gifts we have been given by our beloveds. Our challenge is to affirm and celebrate the joy, goodness, and beauty of life. And to open, we're going to sing together the hymn Breaths, as the words are, sorry? No, it's Abide with Me. Correction. We're going to sing Abide with Me. Please rise in body or in spirit. The words are on the back side of your order of service.
Good morning. My name is Holly Swift, and I'm a member of Eliot Chapel and the Parenting as a Spiritual Practice Covenant Group. Please join me in reading our Congregational Covenant, which is printed in your order of service. As a free congregation, we promise to one another our mutual trust and support. To create beloved community, we promise to be kinder to each other than we have to be. To listen fully to each other with an open mind and heart, to speak responsibly and respectfully, to find ways to improve our church for all members and friends.
Today's children's story is called The 10th Good Thing About Barney by Judith Fjorst. My cat Barney died last Friday. I was very sad. I cried and I didn't watch television. I cried and I didn't eat my chicken or even the chocolate pudding. I went to bed and I cried. My mother sat down on my bed and she gave me a hug. And she said we could have a funeral for Barney in the morning. She said I should think of 10 good things about Barney so I could tell them at the funeral. I thought and I thought and I thought of good things about Barney until I went to sleep. In the morning, my mom wrapped Barney in a yellow scarf. My father buried Barney in the ground by a tree in the yard. Annie, my best friend from next door, came over with flowers, and I told good things about Barney. Barney was brave, I said, and smart and funny and clean, also cuddly and handsome, and he only once ate a bird. It was sweet, I said, to hear him purr in my ear, and sometimes he slept on my belly and kept it warm. Those are all good things, said my mother, but I count just 9. I said I would try to think of a 10th one later. And at the end of the funeral, we sang a song for Barney, but we couldn't remember any cat songs. So we sang about a pussy willow. Even my dad knew all the words. Then Annie and I went into the kitchen, and my mom gave us orangeade and butter cookies, and I gave my seconds to Annie. Sorry, I missed Barney, I said. I can't eat a second cookie. Annie said Barney was in heaven with lots of cats and angels, drinking cream and eating cans of tuna. I said, no, Barney is in the ground. Heaven, said Annie, heaven, so there. Ground, I said, ground, you don't know anything. My father came in from the yard and took a cookie. Big-mouthed Annie said heaven again. I said ground. Tell her who's right, I asked my father. Well, maybe Barney's in heaven, my father began, and Annie stuck her tongue out at me. Maybe Barney isn't, said my father. I yanked Annie's braid. Father made me let go. We don't know too much about heaven, he said. We can't be absolutely sure it's there. But if it is there, said Annie, it's bound to have room for Barney and tuna and cream. My father told me he had to work in the garden, and I said I would help, but only a little. I was still so sad, and I didn't like it that Barney was dead. It's normal to not like it, said Father. He had a packet of little brown seeds, and he shook some out in his hand, and he said, the ground will give these seeds food and a place to live, and soon they'll stem and some leaves will grow up, and there'll be flowers. I squeezed the packet open and looked down at the bottom. I didn't see leaves and I didn't see flowers. Things change in the ground, said my father. In the ground, everything changes. Will Barney change too? Oh yes, said my father, he'll change until he's part of the ground in the garden. And will he help make flowers and leaves, I said? "He will," said my father. "He'll help grow flowers and he'll help grow that tree and some grass. You know," he said, "that's a pretty good job for a cat." We planted all of the seeds in the garden, and we had sandwiches under the tree. When I went to bed that night, my mom came to give me a hug, and I said I had something to tell her. "I have more good things to say about Barney," I said. Barney was brave and smart and cuddly and clean and cuddly and handsome and cuddly, and he only once ate a bird. It was sweet to hear him purr in my ear, and sometimes he slept on my belly and kept it warm. "Those are all good things," said my mother. "Yes," I said, "and now I have another. Barney is in the ground, and he's helping grow flowers. You know," I said, "that's a pretty nice job for a cat." And that's the end of our story. In your orders of service, you will have received a paper leaf. I invite you to write the names of ones you would like to remember and have named. You can certainly write in more than one name on a leaf, and that person need not have died this year. When the music begins, we will begin. First, Reverend Barbara will read the names of those in our congregation who have died this year. Then I will read the names of the loved ones sent in by those who are watching online. Then we'll welcome you to come forward, speak the names of those you wish to remember, and place your leaf on our memory tree. If you have mobility issues, please raise your hand, and a greeter will be happy to assist you. Could I have the greeters please come forward with the leaves? Death and life are constant states of becoming. We are sacred in our living, and we are sacred in our dying. Let us honor those who have passed through their time on this earth and left their mark on our hearts, minds, and spirits.
We will begin with the names of members and friends of this congregation who died this past year. If you are the family member of a member or friend of Eliot who died this past year, I invite you to come up first, speak their name, and place their leaf on the tree. I'll begin reading names then. Phil Traylor, Nancy Rubin, Penny Nesbitt, Bruce Williams, Judy Tisdale, David Barr, Dick Wessel, Ken Dodds, Diane Samuelson. We are grateful for the gift of their presence among us.
We'll now read the names of those submitted by those who join us online for worship. Killian Hendricks Serbo, Tom Stallone, Bart Natoli, George Triplett, James Triplett, John O'Sullivan, Sandy O'Sullivan, Audrey Wagner, Charlie Stockhausen, Jimmy Stockhausen, Helen Wagner, Phil Rock, Jerry Rock, Bob Rice, Rudy Hyder, Lynn Shepard.
Now, I invite those of you who are here in person to come forward. And we're going to ask you to read the name into the microphone and place the leaf on our memory tree.
Bill Snyder.
Uncle Dan and Nana.
Mary Margaret Miller.
Robert Norrish.
Pearson Wolf and Melissa Forshee.
My mother, Ermitine.
Co-workers Suzanne and Nancy, and family members Ida and Richard.
Mary Grossman.
Killian Hendricks Serbell.
My parents, Bobby and Wally Dunlap. My friend Fanny Newman. My dear teacher, Gwen Piper.
Lucy Ponchi.
Mary Sale and Glenn Mackey.
Betty and Nelson Marlowe and Elijah Lewis.
David Salisbury, Margaret O'Connor, Bill Green, and Brendan Williams.
My parents, Marge and Walt Sawitzer, and my in-laws, Gina and Donna Bruns.
Uncle Steve.
Mr. Allgaier and Tim Beth's mom.
Subhash Sabharwal, Paul Perry, Dante Salvatierra, Kirsten Carlson, and Raker the cat. Abuelita Pura and Mary Lou Durbin.
Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. O circle of life, where birth and death are sacred partners in the unending dance of creation. On this day, we honor those who have passed from our midst. We hold up the truth that for all of us, there are times that we are drawn into loss, when tenderness seems to be our natural state, when everything brushes against the raw wound of our grief, reminding us of what we have lost, triggering memories, the tilt of the head, a laugh, a way of walking, a touch, a particular conversation. These images are like beads strung together on a necklace of loss. Tenderly, we turn them again and again. We cannot bear them. We cannot let them go. Then gradually, bit by bit, the binding thread of grief somehow transmutes, reconstitutes itself as a thread of treasured memories, a tilt of the head, a laugh, a way of walking, a touch, a particular conversation. These are gifts from the life we shared with the one who we have lost, gifts that can never be taken away. Those we grieve are ones we loved, and ones we struggled to love, and ones we could not love, and the love given or denied, accepted or rejected, touches the thread of grief in unique and precious ways. We would hold all the ways we grieve, and all the ways we come to these places of seeing gifts when all seemed empty and torn. May we honor and trust the processes of grief and healing, knowing that in time a new day does come. Amen, and blessed be. Every week, we give half of our offering away to an organization in the community that reflects our values. This month, we're dedicating our offering to the Southside Early Childhood Education Center. Southside was created at the turn of the last century by Unitarian women to support working women by providing childcare and early education for their children. They opened their homes, hired sitters and teachers, and volunteered themselves. Since then, Southside has evolved, and its mission is to create equitable and inclusive learning opportunities and support services for all children and families. They strive for an anti-racist approach in all they do. Let us be a generous people, and let us give and receive the offering. Will the greeters please come forward? volunteers please come forward? May today's offering bless this community and Southside. Thank you for your generosity.
Every one of the names offered today holds a whole life story that deserves honor and recognition. Every one of the names read today also holds a part of your story. We've heard the names of people and beings who impacted you, perhaps helped to shape you, make you a better person, opened your heart. I'm also certain that we have heard the names of some that we struggled to love, struggled to let go of, where there are unfinished things that are still working their way through our spirits and may the rest of our lives. I hope that speaking the name of your loved one in this sanctuary honored your process and named the transforming power of the sorrow and joy that is entwined in each of your lives. When we think about what it is like to carry loss, there are two things that are very important. Well, there's a lot of things that are very important, but I'm going to mention two things. One is to honor who that person actually was, which may also include recognizing who they couldn't be. It's about holding the whole person. There's also the task of honoring your own journey of losing them and learning to live without them on this side of the line between life and death. That's what happened in our children's story. They honored who Barney was, but they also honored their grief of him, thus honoring and offering a path for what was to come, which was how they as a family would change without their beloved pet there to greet them every morning. Every one of us holds space for our loss in different ways. I remember a long time ago reading this story, but it has stayed with me ever since. It's the story of an Argentinian man, Miguel, who bought a dog for his son, Damien. And he bought a German Shepherd. And as many of you know, German Shepherds bond with one person. And this dog bonded with Miguel, not Damien. And he stayed by Miguel's side every moment he possibly could. And Damien had to come to a place of accepting this. But then Miguel died accidentally and tragically. Very, very sad for his wife and his son. And when they came home from the funeral service, the dog, his name was Capitan, was gone. They looked everywhere for him, up and down the streets, calling his name, and they could not find him. And now their sadness was magnified because they had lost Miguel and they had lost Capitan, who had become a way for them to connect with Miguel because he would never leave Miguel's side. They were so sad. And then a week later, they went to the cemetery to see Miguel's graveside. And there was the dog, Capitan, laying at the foot of the grave. And the cemetery workers told them that he had been there for the whole week. He had been there all day. And during the day, he wandered the cemetery, seeing everybody who was there, hanging out with the cemetery workers. But every night at 6 p.m., he would go to Miguel's grave and lay there until the sun rose. Well, they tried to bring Capitan home, and he wouldn't. He ran away over and over and over and over again. And every time they'd find him back at Miguel's grave. And finally, they decided that they had to accept who Capitan had become. They had to hold his new way of being. And they had to realize that he had become a blessing to the whole town. He joyfully greeted every visitor he hung out with, the workers during the day who loved him and fed him. And at 6 p.m., he'd lay at Miguel's grave, and people would come to sit with him and admire his devotion and pray that they themselves would have that kind of devotion when their loved ones died. Capitan did this for 10 years until he died. And he is now buried next to his owner. When we lose a loved one, we are going to change in ways that we cannot imagine. Things that worked before don't work so well anymore. Things that were priorities before suddenly don't seem quite as important. What was true about us, what may no longer be true. And we may be developing new priorities, new perspectives, new ways of engaging ourself and our identity and our life. And these changes can be slight or they can be tumultuous. Our task, our spiritual task, is to somehow embrace and create the space for how we are changing and see it as a blessing. Our task is also to embrace and accept how loved ones around us are changing and try to accept and hold their new way of being, even though it may impact us in ways that are a challenge for us. Maybe at least we can accept it for what it is. Death always leads to a rebirth of some kind. Now we know that births can be painful and exhausting, even as they are liberating and transforming. And we can embrace that. But we also know, and I'm going to speak to those of you for perhaps whom the change is so extreme that you can't find your way through. The rebirth can't happen. If that is the case for you, I hope and pray that you will ask for help, including professional help. And that if it's gotten so hard that you can't do it for yourself, then try for your loved ones who are likely very worried about you and missing you terribly. You are welcome to reach out to me as well, and I will support you in getting the help that you need. Grief is a journey. It's a journey that we'll be on throughout our lives, and it can be a blessing even when we curse the losses that put us on that journey. Grief leads to a new wholeness and new life. This week, I invite you to take some time for yourself, even if you can only squeeze in a few minutes, and reflect on some of your losses. Reflect on the journey that you are on. Reflect on who you are becoming, and reflect on how you've created space for it, and how you might yet create more space for it if you need to. And then bless it, because this is how you honor yourself, and also how you honor those who have grieved and are grieving, and honor the ones who have passed. This is my prayer for all of us. Love to you all. Amen, and blessed be. I would invite you to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, For All the Saints. The words are on the back of your order of service.
Faith before the world confess.
this is a prayer. For those who have gone ahead, this is a blessing. For those who touched and tended us, who lingered with us while they lived, this is a thanksgiving. For those who still journey with us, this is a benediction. Go in peace.